one of the world's most celebrated partnerships, Bill and Melinda Gates. Their announcement of divorce after nearly 3 decades? A global jaw-dropper. Imagine watching a power couple, known for their shared vision of success, philanthropy, and unity, suddenly unravel. It was like seeing a real-life fairy tale falter. So, what was it that led Melinda to make this life-altering choice? But before the reveal, let's rewind the tape. Who is Bill Gates? Bill Gates is a name almost everyone recognizes, but what makes his story so fascinating is how he transformed the world. Not just with technology, but through his vision, his wealth, and his philanthropic efforts. Imagine being born in 1955 in Seattle, a city that would later become a tech hub, but back then was just a regular spot on the map. Bill Gates didn't come from a family of tech moguls. In fact, his parents were both highly accomplished, but his interest in computers was something entirely his own. In an era when computers were room-sized, expensive, and clunky, Gates was one of the kids who saw the future before it even arrived. At the age of 13, he coded his first computer program, and by 15, he had already made his first $20,000 by developing software for a local company. Gates didn't just want to be part of the revolution, he wanted to drive it. So, in 1975, he dropped out of Harvard University, a bold move to say the least, and teamed up with his childhood friend Paul Allen to create Microsoft. Their big break came when they convinced IBM, one of the largest tech companies at the time, to use their software MS-DOS in their first personal computers. The rest, as they say, is history. Gates went on to create Windows, a user-friendly operating system that would make personal computers accessible to people around the world. Microsoft exploded, making Gates one of the richest people on the planet. But what's more incredible than his rise to fame is what he did with his wealth. In 2000, Bill and his wife Melinda co-founded the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, a charitable organization that has spent billions tackling some of the world's most pressing issues, fighting global poverty, improving education, advancing healthcare, and eradicating diseases like polio and malaria. Their story began in 1987, in the bustling halls of Microsoft, where Melinda French had just started as a product manager. Did she ever imagine her life would entwine with one of the world's most influential figures? Probably not. Their first meeting wasn't exactly a rom-com spark fest. When Bill finally asked her out, he suggested a date 2 weeks in advance. Talk about planning. Melinda was blunt, brushing it off with, "I have no idea what I'm doing that far ahead." But Bill wasn't one to take no for an answer. An hour later, he rang her back and asked, "Is this spontaneous enough for you?" Clearly, it worked. Fast forward to 1993. After 6 years, Bill popped the question, and the pair celebrated with a life-changing trip to Africa. Walking along the beach in Zanzibar, they had a conversation that planted the seeds for what would become the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They dreamt big, planning to funnel their fortune into making the world a better place. In 1994, their Hawaiian wedding was an event of secrecy and spectacle. Determined to keep it private, they reserved every hotel room and even booked every helicopter in the area. It was an intimate affair, with only 130 family members and friends. Their family expanded in 1996 with the birth of their first child, Jennifer, followed by 2 more, Rory and Phoebe. Around this time, Melinda made the big decision to step away from her role at Microsoft to be a stay-at-home mom, wanting to raise their children with a strong foundation of values. For someone as driven as Melinda, this wasn't an easy call. Their partnership extended into philanthropy. By 1998, they launched a $100 million initiative to improve vaccine access worldwide. A year later, their second child, Rory, was born, and Melinda often spoke of his compassionate nature, describing him as someone who shared her love for puzzles. Then came Phoebe, the youngest, in 2002, a bright and playful addition to their family. The 2000s saw them solidify their roles as global changemakers. With significant contributions to health, education, and equality, they were recognized on multiple fronts. In 2016, they received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, America's highest civilian honor. Even amidst their hectic schedules, they still found moments to enjoy each other's company, bonding over jigsaw puzzles and binge-watching shows like Downton Abbey and This Is Us. Their love story hit a bittersweet peak on their 25th anniversary. Melinda shared a hilarious memory of Bill, the math whiz, attempting to cut their wedding cake into perfect slices, only to discover it had a cardboard middle. It was a quirky memory that encapsulated the love, humor, and partnership they shared. Yet, despite this shared history, life led them down different paths. Melinda's decision to part ways was more than an end of a marriage. It was a significant chapter closing, leaving us all to wonder what the next page holds for each of them. In March 2020, the Gates Foundation steps up. The world faced an unprecedented crisis with the pandemic. Bill and Melinda Gates rose to the occasion. Their foundation pledged a staggering $125 million, an amount that would help fast-track vaccine research and treatments. Big players in a high-stakes game. When others were still figuring things out, the Gates Foundation was already on the front lines. But just a year later, in May 2021, they announced the end of their 27-year marriage. In a joint statement, they emphasized their commitment to their foundation but admitted they could no longer grow together as a couple. After decades of partnership, the timing felt surreal. They were not only tackling the world's crises but also facing a very personal one. The world was stunned. What went wrong in a seemingly perfect union? The Gates story had always been about shared missions, but now cracks were showing. The mystery behind the Gates divorce. The public had always seen them as the power couple with a common vision, but insiders suggested there were deeper issues. Reports hinted that their youngest daughter's graduation in 2021 might have influenced their decision. Did they, like many parents, stay together for the kids? Even with all the emotional challenges, both Bill and Melinda aimed to keep things civil. Neither wanted a messy fallout that could hurt their work or public image. Yet, rumors swirled. Melinda's family, it seemed, had their grievances with Bill. A hint of family tension. The storyline gets more intriguing. Bill's unusual marriage agreement. One of the revelations that surprised many was Bill's agreement with Melinda to spend an annual weekend with his ex-girlfriend, Anne Winblad. Yes, you read that right. Anne was a fellow tech enthusiast, and even after they parted ways romantically, they continued to meet once a year to discuss everything from biotech to the latest in science. Melinda apparently was fine with it. An odd arrangement, right? Even in a marriage that seemed grounded in partnership, this was a layer no one saw coming. But in the end, Melinda described their marriage as irretrievably broken. The tradition with and might not have been the sole reason, but it was another piece in the puzzle of a complex marriage. The Epstein connection, a critical turning point. One significant factor Melinda disclosed was her deep discomfort with Bill's connection to Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced financier. She only met Epstein once, she said, and immediately regretted it. Epstein's connection to Bill continued for years, despite Epstein's criminal history. In a revealing CBS interview, Melinda explained that the Epstein meetings were part of a broader set of marital issues. This association weighed heavily on her decision to leave. This was more than a mistake in judgment, it was the unraveling of trust. Other scandals in Bill's work life. Beyond Epstein, rumors of Bill's interactions with other women in his work environments began to surface. In one instance, he sent a dinner invitation to a female Microsoft employee, casually suggesting she could pretend it never happened if she was uncomfortable. And he made similar advances over the years. Years later, Microsoft investigated a reported affair, which led to Gates stepping down from the board in 2020. His spokesperson clarified that the departure wasn't related to the affair, but the timing was suspect. Board exit amid scandal? Timing often tells a story of its own. Melinda's final reflections. After learning about Bill's past and grappling with issues over the years, Melinda had hoped they'd worked through it, but ultimately, she realized she couldn't trust what they had. Her public comments reflected a sense of closure. It just wasn't healthy, and I couldn't trust it. Endings are rarely about one reason alone. It was a collection of moments and realizations that led her to step away. What seemed like the perfect partnership was, in fact, layered with secrets, tension, and a breaking point that no amount of wealth or philanthropy could hold together. And while they continue their shared mission through their foundation, their personal lives remind us that even the most high-profile unions can face irreparable fractures. When Melinda Gates was asked about the possibility of Bill having other affairs, she stood her ground, cool and composed. "Those are questions Bill will have to answer himself," she firmly stated. A quiet, yet powerful response that clearly set the boundary. Divorce, she admitted, was never something she envisioned for herself. Yet, over time, it became the only option that made sense. "I believe in forgiveness, and I thought we had worked through those issues," she explained. But despite the heartbreak, Melinda found a glimmer of hope amid the pain. She described the emotional journey as an intense roller coaster. Days of feeling completely lost, followed by waves of anger and frustration. For her, the divorce was a process of mourning the loss of a future she once thought was set in stone. Fast forward to May 2024, the moment everyone was waiting for. Melinda announced she would be stepping down from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It wasn't just a minor career move. This decision made waves through the philanthropic world. Her announcement on Instagram sent shockwaves. Her last day would be June 7, 2024. "After 2 decades of working side by side with Bill, I'm ready for a new chapter," she wrote. In the post, she acknowledged the immense work she and Bill had done together to tackle global inequalities. But it was clear, the time had come for her to go her own way. She would be focusing on causes close to her heart, especially those empowering women and families. As part of her departure, Melinda would also have a staggering $125 billion to direct toward these initiatives. Talk about a fresh start, right? So, how did Bill respond? As expected, he took to LinkedIn, expressing his gratitude for Melinda's contributions. He recognized the vital role she played in shaping the foundation's initiatives, particularly in global health and gender equality. While he expressed regret at her decision to leave, Bill was confident that Melinda would continue to make an impact on her own journey. "Her work isn't over," he stated. Melinda wasn't just walking away without thought. She made it clear that this was a carefully considered decision. She stressed that the foundation was on solid ground and that now was the right time for her to step forward with full control over her next philanthropic chapter. She was ready to focus on pivotal ventures, her organization that supports women and families. She described her exit as a step toward full decision-making autonomy, something she was fully ready to embrace. The foundation, she believes, will continue to thrive under Bill's leadership and the stewardship of CEO Mark Sussman. As she reflected on her divorce, which had been finalized 3 years earlier, Melinda didn't hold back. "I cried for many days," she confessed. The rawness of her grief was palpable. She admitted to moments of utter despair, wondering how she would ever move forward. But as anyone who has experienced deep loss knows, grief is complicated. Along with the sadness, there was anger. Yet, in the midst of it all, Melinda found hope. As she began to heal, she began to rediscover her passion for life and what lay ahead. Her separation from Bill had been a private affair, allowing them to untangle their lives with as much dignity as possible. And for that, she was grateful. The pandemic, of all things, turned out to be a strange blessing. The isolation gave Melinda the space she needed to process her emotions and plan her next steps, away from the public eye. Looking back, she now sees her divorce as a necessary part of her journey. While she and Bill had built a global nonprofit empire, she was ready to strike out on her own path. Melinda's commitment to giving back is unwavering. In fact, she's more determined than ever to make an independent impact. She continues her work with the Giving Pledge, a movement she co-founded with Bill and Warren Buffett, encouraging billionaires to donate at least 50% of their wealth to charitable causes. With her own $125 billion to direct, the sky is the limit. On a more personal note, Melinda is rediscovering joy. Life post-divorce has brought unexpected freedom. She's embraced a simpler, more fulfilling lifestyle. "It's been wonderful," she shared, beaming. Her new home is in a walkable neighborhood, where she can easily stroll to the local stores, the drugstore, and even a cozy restaurant. This newfound independence is something she's truly savoring. And, as if that wasn't enough, Melinda is even dipping her toe back into the dating pool. "A little bit," she said with a smile, cautiously optimistic about what the future holds. Bill, too, had his moment of reflection. In a May 2022 Today interview, he admitted that the year of their split was difficult. He took responsibility for the pain it caused, calling the divorce a sad thing. But there was a sense of hope in his words as well. "I feel good that we are all moving forward now," he said. Both Bill and Melinda are forging their own paths, and while their journey together ended, it's clear they are both optimistic about the future. So, what do you think? Is Melinda's approach to her new life inspiring? After such a major life shift, she seems to have found peace, purpose, and even joy, a true testament to resilience.